It started with an argument, one that felt all too familiar. My wife, Megan, had been unusually playful with other men at a neighborhood barbecue. A casual touch here, a laugh that lingered there, nothing overt, but enough to churn my stomach. We'd been married for 7 years, and while we weren't perfect, I never thought we'd need to have a conversation about boundaries like this. But that night we did. "Are you serious?" she snapped, crossing her arms. "I was just being friendly. It's not my fault you're so insecure." "Insecure?" I shot back, my voice rising. "Flirting isn't friendly, Megan. It's disrespectful, especially when I'm standing right there." Her sigh was exaggerated, like I was exhausting her. "I can't believe we're even having this conversation." "Grow up, Liam." She stormed off to the bedroom, leaving me simmering on the couch. My mind raced with what I could do to make her see how her actions made me feel. Then, out of nowhere, a petty idea struck. If she thought flirting was harmless, I'd show her what it felt like. I grabbed my laptop and signed up for a dating site. My plan wasn't serious. I wasn't looking to cheat. I just wanted to create a profile and leave it open for her to find. I thought it would spark jealousy, maybe even a serious conversation about the way we'd been treating each other lately. But what happened next was something I could have never imagined. As I completed the sign-up process, the site's algorithm suggested matches based on my profile. I scrolled through the list absent-mindedly, but one face stopped me cold. There she was. Megan. My wife. Smiling back at me from her own dating profile. My hand froze on the mouse. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. But then I clicked on her profile, and every detail confirmed it. Her age. Her interests. Even the way she described herself in the bio. Free-spirited, loves to laugh, and looking for someone who appreciates spontaneity. The same words she'd used to describe herself when we met. Shock turned to rage, and then to something worse, an overwhelming numbness. I didn't confront her right away. No, this wasn't the kind of betrayal you could deal with in one night. I needed to think. To plan. And that's when I called my best friend, Jake. Jake was the kind of friend you call when the world's on fire. Calm, collected, and willing to do whatever it took to have your back. When I told him what I'd found, his reaction was a mix of disbelief and fury. "She's on a dating site?" he asked, his voice rising. "What the hell, Liam?" "I know," I muttered, pacing the living room. "I saw her profile. It's her, Jake. There's no mistaking it." He paused, processing. "All right, what's the plan? You're not just gonna confront her, are you?" "No," I said, my voice firm. "She'll deny it, or find a way to twist it. I need proof. Real proof." That's when Jake came up with the idea. "She doesn't know me," he said. "Why don't I make a profile, message her, and see where it goes? If she takes the bait, you'll have everything you need." At first I hesitated. It felt like crossing a line, dragging someone else into my marriage problems. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed an outsider. Someone she wouldn't suspect. "All right," I agreed finally. "But keep it simple. If she takes the bait, don't push too hard. I just want to know how far she's willing to go." That night, Jake created his profile. He used a fake name and photos of an acquaintance Megan wouldn't recognize. A guy who looked every bit the part of the charming, mysterious stranger her profile seemed designed to attract. Within an hour, Jake had sent her a message. It was casual, friendly, with just enough intrigue to catch her attention. "Hey, Megan. Love your smile. You seem like someone who knows how to have fun. What brings you here?" The next day, Jake called me with an update. "She replied?" he said, his tone grim. "What did she say?" I asked, my stomach in knots. "She said, thanks for the compliment. I'm just looking for someone who understands me, you know. Life gets complicated sometimes." Jake paused, then added, "She didn't mention you." "Not once." I clenched my jaw, my hands trembling. "Keep going," I said. "See where it leads." Over the next few days, their conversation deepened. Megan opened up to Jake's fake persona, describing herself as unfulfilled and stuck. She painted a picture of a marriage that was cold and lifeless, a far cry from the reality I thought we shared. And then came the message I'd been dreading. "We should meet up," she wrote. "How about this Friday? I'll book a hotel room." Jake called me immediately. "She's serious, Liam," he said, his voice tight. "She's not just flirting. She's ready to go through with it." I was silent, the weight of her betrayal crushing me. But as the pain settled, it hardened into resolve. "All right," I said. "Let's set the trap." Friday couldn't come fast enough. Each passing day was a torturous blur of pretending everything was normal. Megan went about her routine like nothing had changed, smiling at me over dinner, kissing me goodnight, and scrolling through her phone like she wasn't planning to meet a stranger. Meanwhile, Jake and I finalized the plan. He would accept Megan's invitation to the hotel but would never actually show up. Instead, I would be the one waiting. The thought of seeing her walk into that room, expecting someone else, was enough to make my stomach churn. But I needed to see this through. "She'll never expect you to be there," Jake said during one of our late-night calls. "Just make sure you get everything on video. If this goes south, you need undeniable proof." The hotel Megan had chosen was just far enough out of town to avoid running into anyone we knew. She even gave Jake a fake name to use when checking in, which told me she'd done this before, or at least thought through the logistics. That realization made my blood boil all over again. The night arrived, and I left the house just after dinner, telling Megan I had a work meeting that ran late. She barely looked up from her phone, murmuring something about how she'd probably just have a quiet night at home. The audacity of her line nearly made me lose it right then and there. Jake and I met in the hotel parking lot. He handed me a key card, his face grim. "Room 204. She said she'd be there at 8:30 sharp." I nodded, gripping the key so tightly it left an imprint in my palm. "Thanks, man. For everything." "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked, his voice low. "You're gonna walk in there and, what? Confront her?" I exhaled slowly, my breath visible in the cold night air. "I just need to see it. I need to hear it from her own mouth." Jake patted me on the shoulder, then turned to leave. "Call me if you need anything," he said. "I'll be nearby." I entered the room, my heart pounding. It was a standard hotel setup, neutral tones, bland decor, and a bed that felt far too intimate for what was about to happen. I sat in the corner, out of sight from the door, and set up my phone to record. Then I waited. At exactly 8:30, there was a soft knock. My chest tightened as I heard the door creak open. Megan stepped inside, her hair done up, wearing a dress I hadn't seen in years. She glanced around the room, her expression nervous but excited. "Hello?" she called softly. "Are you here?" I stepped out from the shadows, my voice cold and steady. "Yeah, Megan. I'm here." Her eyes widened in shock, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't form words. "Liam?" she stammered. What are you doing here?" I held up my phone, the camera still recording. "That's what I'd like to ask you." For a moment, she was frozen, her face a mask of guilt and fear. Then, as if flipping a switch, she straightened her shoulders and crossed her arms. "You're spying on me now? Seriously? Don't turn this around on me," I snapped, my voice rising. "You were meeting a stranger in a hotel room, Megan. Don't you dare try to make me the villain here." She faltered, the bravado crumbling. I didn't think. That much is obvious," I interrupted. "How long has this been going on? How many other men have there been?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't let them sway me. This wasn't the time for forgiveness or explanations. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment she had to face the truth. And she wasn't ready for what would come next. Megan stood there, her face pale, her hands trembling at her sides. I could see the battle raging behind her eyes. Should she deny it? Try to spin a story? But she knew the evidence was stacked against her. My presence, the camera, the text Jake had shared with me, it was all too much to explain away. I wasn't going to go through with it, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a stupid mistake. I didn't know how to tell you how unhappy I've been. Unhappy? I repeated, my voice bitter. And this is how you fixed that? By sneaking around behind my back and meeting strangers in hotel rooms? Her tears started to fall, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. The anger had been building for weeks, and now it was pouring out, unstoppable. Do you even realize what you've done? I continued, stepping closer. I trusted you, Megan. I built my life around you. And you throw it all away for, what? A cheap thrill? She sank onto the edge of the bed, her head in her hands. It wasn't like that, she sobbed. It was never about you. I just felt, I don't know, lost. I scoffed. Lost? You didn't seem too lost when you were setting this up. The fake name, the excuses, the lies, you knew exactly what you were doing. She looked up at me, her tear-streaked face a mix of shame and desperation. What do you want me to say, Liam? That I screwed up? That I hate myself for it? Fine. I do. But please don't throw everything away over one mistake. One mistake? I snapped, my voice rising. You don't just accidentally create a dating profile, flirt with strangers, and book hotel rooms, Megan. That's not a mistake, that's a pattern. She fell silent, her sobs quieting as the weight of my words sank in. For a moment, the room was filled with nothing but the sound of my ragged breathing and the faint hum of the air conditioning. I'm done, I said finally, my voice cold and steady. This isn't something you can cry your way out of. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it. I turned to leave, my hand on the doorknob, when her voice stopped me. Wait, she said, her tone desperate. What are you going to do? I paused, not looking back. You'll find out soon enough. And with that, I walked out, leaving her alone in the room she'd prepared for someone else. The drive home was a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white, and my chest felt like it might explode. Megan's sobbing face replayed in my mind, but instead of softening my resolve, it only hardened it further. I had given her everything, my trust, my love, my loyalty, and she had thrown it all away. When I got home, Jake was waiting for me. He leaned against his car, his expression tense. Well? He asked as I got out. She admitted it, I said flatly. Tried to say she was lost. That it was a mistake. I shook my head. She doesn't even realize how much damage she's done. Jake frowned. What's next then? Are you done with her? I hesitated, the weight of the question pressing down on me. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm not letting her walk away from this unscathed. That's when Jake's face lit up with an idea. What if we make her feel the humiliation she tried to hide? She thought she was being clever, sneaking around, lying to you. Let's turn the tables. I narrowed my eyes. What are you suggesting? Jake smirked. What if we expose her? Publicly. On the same platform she used to cheat. The idea sent a chill through me, not because it was cruel, but because it felt right. She had dragged me into her secret world, turning my life upside down. Why shouldn't everyone see her for who she really was? What do you have in mind? I asked, my voice steady. Jake pulled out his phone. She's still on that dating site, right? We'll tweak my profile, make it seem like you're the one she's been talking to all along. Then, we post the messages and the hotel booking screenshots. Let her friends, her family, see the truth. She can't play the victim if everyone knows. I hesitated, the weight of the decision settling over me. This wasn't just about getting even, it was about making a statement. But part of me wondered if it would go too far. She'll hate me for it, I said finally. Jake shrugged. Maybe. But she already betrayed you. Do you really care what she thinks anymore? That was the question, wasn't it? Did I care? The answer was becoming clearer with every passing second. I'll think about it, I said, though deep down, I knew the decision was already made. The next day, Jake and I worked in secret. We compiled everything: screenshots of her messages, photos from the hotel room, even a brief clip of the confrontation. Jake's fake profile became the centerpiece of the reveal, a web of lies Megan had spun, unraveled in a way she couldn't control. By evening, the post was ready. We titled it simply, "The Truth About Megan." It was brutal but honest. A detailed account of her betrayal, backed by irrefutable evidence. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked, his finger hovering over the post button. I nodded, my jaw tight. "Do it." Jake pressed the button, and just like that, the wheels of revenge were set in motion. The fallout was immediate. Within hours, the post went viral, shared by people who couldn't resist the scandal. Comments flooded in, some condemning Megan, others speculating about what had driven her to cheat. But the worst part for her: her friends and family saw everything. By the time Megan called me, her voice was trembling with rage and fear. "How could you do this?" she screamed. "You've ruined me." "No, Megan," I said coldly. "You ruined yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it." The days following the post were chaos. Megan's world unraveled faster than I'd expected. Her phone blew up with calls and messages from friends, family, and even coworkers who'd seen the post. At first, she tried to deny it, claiming the whole thing was a fabrication. But the evidence was airtight. Every message, every receipt, every screenshot, it was all there, and there was no spinning the truth. She showed up at my doorstep 2 days after the post went live, her face pale and drawn. She looked like she hadn't slept, her once confident demeanor replaced by desperation. "Liam, please," she begged the moment I opened the door. "You have to take it down." "I'll do whatever you want, just, please take it down." I stared at her, my anger still raw. "Now you want to fix things? When everyone knows? When you can't hide anymore?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But this is destroying me. My friends, my job, everything's falling apart." I crossed my arms unmoved. "Funny, that's exactly how I felt when I found your profile on that site." She flinched, the weight of her guilt written all over her face. "I'll make it up to you," she whispered, reaching for my arm. "We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. Just, don't give up on us." I pulled away, shaking my head. "This isn't something you can patch up with a few promises, Megan. You destroyed our marriage the moment you started looking for someone else." Her tears spilled over, but I didn't care. The anger that had kept me going for the past week refused to let me feel pity. "I'll think about what to do next," I said coldly. "But for now, you need to leave." She hesitated, as if she wanted to say more, but the weight of my words silenced her. She nodded, wiping her face, and walked away without another word. That night, Jake came over with a bottle of whiskey and a triumphant grin. "I saw the comments," he said, pouring us each a glass. "The internet is tearing her apart. Some of her friends even turned on her in the comments section. Brutal." I took the glass, but my victory felt hollow. "It doesn't feel as good as I thought it would," I admitted. Jake shrugged. "You're not done yet. You've taken her pride, sure, but you still have leverage. The house, the finances. That's where the real power lies." His words planted a seed. I hadn't thought much about the practical fallout, our shared assets, our legal status, but now it loomed large in my mind. Megan wasn't just my wife, she was tied to everything in my life. "You're right," I said after a long pause. "I need to finish this." The next day, I contacted a lawyer. I laid everything out, the affair, the evidence, the public fallout, and asked what my options were. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Carla, listened carefully before leaning back in her chair. "With what you've shown me," she said, "you have grounds to file for divorce on the basis of adultery. Depending on your state's laws, you could also leverage this evidence to secure a favorable financial settlement, especially if her infidelity affected your shared assets or reputation. Do it, I said without hesitation. Carla nodded, sliding a stack of papers across the desk. We'll start the process. Be prepared for a fight, though. Cases like this can get ugly. I smirked. Good. I'm not afraid of ugly. Megan found out about the divorce papers 3 days later. She called me, her voice panicked. You're divorcing me? She cried. Liam, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious, I said, my tone icy. She begged, pleaded, and even tried to guilt me, claiming that airing our dirty laundry online had been punishment enough. But I didn't budge. You didn't care about this marriage when you were sneaking around, I told her. Now you're just facing the consequences of your choices. You're not perfect either, she shot back, desperation lacing her words. You're acting like you're some saint, but you're not. No, I agreed. But I didn't betray you. And that's the difference. As the days turned into weeks, Megan's life continued to spiral. Her friends distanced themselves, her job put her on probation, and her once perfect image was shattered. But for me, the fallout was far from over. The divorce was just the beginning. The divorce proceedings began, and Megan's panic turned into anger. She went from pleading for forgiveness to blaming me for everything. During one of our court-mandated mediation sessions, she lashed out. You're not innocent in this, she spat, her voice trembling. You were distant, Liam. You made me feel invisible. That's why I looked for someone else. I stared at her, my face a mask of calm. And instead of talking to me about it, you went on a dating site and booked hotel rooms. That's not my fault, Megan. That's on you. Her lawyer, a smug man who seemed to enjoy stirring the pot, tried to redirect the conversation. Mr. Carter, surely you can see that this is a complex situation. Relationships break down for many reasons. Save it, I interrupted. We're not here to dissect our marriage. We're here to divide what's left of it. The mediator cleared her throat, trying to regain control of the room. Let's focus on the financials, she said. Megan, your attorney has indicated that you're seeking spousal support. Is that correct? Megan hesitated, glancing at her lawyer. He nodded, and she straightened her shoulders. Yes, she said, her voice firm. Liam makes significantly more than I do. I deserve support to maintain my lifestyle. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound cold and humorless. You're kidding, right? I said, shaking my head. You blew up our marriage, humiliated me in front of everyone we know, and now you want me to pay for your lifestyle? Her face flushed with anger. I've supported you in other ways, Liam. Just because I don't make as much money doesn't mean I didn't contribute. Your contribution involved dating other men. I shot back. The mediator tried to calm us, but the damage was done. The room was thick with tension, and I could see Megan's lawyer scribbling furiously in his notes. Outside the meeting, my lawyer Carla pulled me aside. She's going to fight for alimony, she said bluntly. But with the evidence we have, I doubt she'll win. That said, she's not going to make this easy. Are you ready for a battle? I nodded. Whatever it takes, I said. She doesn't deserve a cent. Carla smiled faintly. Good. Because I have an idea that might turn the tables even further. What kind of idea? I asked, intrigued. She pulled out her tablet and showed me a draft of a document. It's a countersuit, she explained. We can file for damages. Public humiliation, emotional distress, damage to your reputation, it's all fair game. If we win, she could end up owing you money instead. The thought of Megan being forced to pay me instead of draining my finances filled me with a twisted sense of satisfaction. Do it, I said. Over the next few weeks, the countersuit became the focal point of our divorce battle. Megan's lawyer tried to argue that I was the one who had escalated things by exposing her infidelity online, but Carla countered with precision. The online post was a direct response to Mrs. Carter's actions. Carla argued in court. Mr. Carter acted out of anger and betrayal, but the foundation of this case lies in Mrs. Carter's repeated infidelity and dishonesty. The judge seemed to sympathize with my position, nodding thoughtfully as Carla presented the evidence. Megan, on the other hand, looked like a shadow of her former self. The confident, charismatic woman I had married was gone, replaced by someone desperate and floundering. A month later, the judge ruled in my favor. Not only was Megan denied spousal support, but she was also ordered to pay me a settlement for the emotional distress her actions had caused. The look on her face when the verdict was read was one I'd never forget. She glared at me as if I'd destroyed her life, but all I could think was how poetic it was. She had played with fire, and now she was the one left burned. As we left the courtroom, Megan caught up to me in the hallway. "You got what you wanted," she hissed. "Are you happy now?" I stopped and looked at her, my expression unreadable. "Happiness has nothing to do with this," I said. "You made your choices, Megan. Now you're just living with the consequences." Her eyes filled with tears, but I turned away, leaving her behind without a second glance. Winning the court battle should have felt like the end, but it was only the beginning of a new chapter, one I wasn't prepared for. Megan moved out the same week the judge handed down the ruling. She took her things quietly, avoiding eye contact as I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You don't have to stand there like I'm stealing something," she muttered, her voice bitter. I didn't respond, watching as she carried the last box to her car. When she drove away, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. 7 years of marriage packed up and gone in a single afternoon. The house was eerily quiet without her. No sounds of her humming while cooking, no arguments about the TV remote, no clinking of her wine glass against mine during dinner. At first I thought I'd miss her presence, but as the days passed, I realized it wasn't her I missed. It was the version of her I thought I knew, the woman I'd fallen in love with, the one who didn't exist anymore. Jake remained a constant, checking in regularly to make sure I wasn't spiraling. One night, we sat on the back porch, a couple of beers between us. "You should celebrate," he said, raising his bottle. "You're free, man. No more lies, no more drama. Just you starting fresh." I smirked, clinking my bottle against his. "Starting fresh sounds nice, but I have no idea how to do it." "Start small," he suggested. "Go out. Meet new people. Hell, even join one of those dating sites for real this time. Only this time, without the ulterior motives." The thought made me laugh. "Yeah, because that worked out so well last time." Jake shrugged. "Hey, not every woman is like Megan. You'll find someone who deserves you." I didn't reply, but his words lingered. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope, like maybe this wasn't the end of my story, just a messy detour. A few days later, I started making changes. I redecorated the house, stripping away every trace of Megan. Her photos came down, her favorite throw pillows went to a donation bin, and I even repainted the walls. It wasn't about erasing her. It was about reclaiming my space, my life. I also began reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. Megan had a way of isolating me, whether intentionally or not, and I hadn't realized how lonely I'd been until I started reaching out. One night, a group of us went to a local bar. It was nothing fancy, just a place to catch up and unwind. I wasn't looking for anything, just a chance to be around people who didn't come with baggage. That's when I met her. Her name was Claire, and she was the opposite of Megan in every way. Down to earth, funny, and refreshingly honest. We struck up a conversation at the bar, and before I knew it, hours had passed. "You don't seem like the usual bar crowd," she teased, sipping her drink. "Divorce tends to push you into uncharted territory," I admitted with a wry smile. Her expression softened. "Rough one? Let's just say it had more plot twists than a bad soap opera," I replied. Claire laughed, and for the first time in months, I felt something shift. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something, a reminder that life didn't end with Megan. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. Claire and I had exchanged numbers, and while I wasn't sure where it would lead, I wasn't in a rush to find out. For now, I was content to take things slow, one step at a time. But just as I began to feel like I was moving on, Megan came crashing back into my life in the most unexpected way. It had been a month since Megan moved out. The house felt like mine again, and for the first time in years, I was starting to breathe easy. My connection with Claire had grown stronger, though we were taking things slow. Life was finally settling into something resembling normalcy. Then Megan showed up at my doorstep. I heard the knock one evening and assumed it was a delivery. But when I opened the door, there she was, standing there with puffy eyes and a shaky smile. She looked fragile, like the weight of everything had finally caught up with her. "Megan," I said, my tone flat. "What are you doing here? Can I come in?" she asked softly. Every instinct screamed at me to say no, but curiosity, or maybe old habits, got the better of me. I stepped aside, letting her into the house that no longer felt like hers. She stood awkwardly in the living room, her eyes scanning the space. The absence of her belongings was impossible to miss, and I saw the flicker of pain cross her face. "You've redecorated," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want, Megan?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. She hesitated, wringing her hands. "I needed to see you. To talk." I crossed my arms, staying rooted to the spot. "About what?" She took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but I've been struggling. I lost my job. My friends don't talk to me anymore. I don't know where to turn." I clenched my jaw, refusing to let her guilt me. "You brought this on yourself, Megan. You made your choices, and now you're facing the consequences." "I know," she said quickly, her voice breaking. "I know I screwed up. But Liam, I've lost everything. And I'm scared." There was a time when those words would have broken me, when I would have done anything to fix her pain. But that time had passed. Still, something about the vulnerability in her eyes made me pause. "What do you expect me to do?" I asked, my voice steady. She took a hesitant step closer. "I don't want to fight anymore. I miss you. I miss us. I know it's too late, but I had to try." Her words hung in the air, heavy and raw. For a moment I felt the ghost of our past life, a flicker of the love we once shared. But it was just that, a ghost. "I can't help you, Megan," I said finally. "Not anymore. You destroyed what we had, and I've worked too hard to move forward. You need to do the same." Her face crumpled, and she let out a sob. "Please, Liam. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." But there was nothing she could say to undo the damage she'd caused. "You need to leave," I said, my voice firm. Megan didn't argue. She nodded, wiping her tears, and walked out the door without another word. As I watched her drive away, I felt a strange sense of closure. This wasn't the dramatic confrontation I'd imagined, but it was the ending I needed. Later that night, Claire called. Her voice was warm, grounding me after the whirlwind of emotions Megan had stirred up. "How's your day going?" she asked. "Complicated," I admitted. Claire laughed softly. "That seems to be your specialty." "Not anymore," I said, a smile creeping into my voice. "I think I'm finally ready to leave the complications behind." And for the first time, I believed it. A week passed after Megan's visit, and I thought that was the end of it. She'd left, and I could finally move on. My focus shifted to building something new with Claire, someone who felt honest and real in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Then the letter arrived. It came in a plain white envelope, with no return address. At first, I thought it was junk mail, but something about the handwriting caught my eye. I tore it open, my heart sinking as I read the words. "Liam, there's something you need to know. I wasn't completely honest with you about my reasons for reaching out. I'm pregnant." The room spun. I had to read the letter 3 times to make sure I wasn't imagining things. Megan pregnant? Was she serious? My mind raced. We hadn't been intimate in months, not since before I found out about her betrayal. That could only mean... No. It wasn't mine. I called Megan immediately, my hand trembling as I held the phone. She picked up on the second ring. You're pregnant? I asked, skipping any pleasantries. She hesitated. Yes, she admitted quietly. And it's not mine, is it? Her silence was answer enough. I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening on the phone. Whose is it, Megan? The guy from the dating site? Someone else? Who? It doesn't matter, she said, her voice pleading. I didn't tell you to hurt you. I told you because I didn't know who else to turn to. I don't know what to do, Liam. You don't know what to do? I echoed, my voice rising. You're the one who put yourself in this situation. You lied, cheated, and now you want me to clean up your mess? Are you kidding me? I'm not asking you to do anything, she insisted. I thought you should know. I don't know why. Maybe because I still care about you. I laughed bitterly. Caring about me would have meant not destroying our marriage. This isn't my problem, Megan. Figure it out yourself. She started crying, but I didn't wait to hear more. I hung up, feeling like the floor had been ripped out from under me. For days, the revelation haunted me. Not because of Megan, but because of the life that was now tied to her betrayal. An innocent child, caught in the crossfire of her reckless choices. Jake, ever the voice of reason, tried to snap me out of it. She's just trying to rope you back in, man, he said over beers one night. Don't let her guilt you into playing the hero. I know, I said, though my thoughts were conflicted. What are you gonna do? Jake pressed. I sighed. Nothing. It's not my responsibility. But, it's hard not to feel something. For the kid, you know? Don't let her use that against you, Jake warned. She made her bed. Let her lie in it. Despite Jake's advice, the situation weighed on me. But Megan didn't contact me again, and as the weeks turned into months, I began to put it out of my mind. Claire and I grew closer, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuine happiness. She didn't press me about Megan or the divorce, giving me space to heal in my own time. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, Claire turned to me and smiled. You seem lighter lately, she said. I nodded, realizing she was right. The bitterness and anger that had consumed me for so long were fading, replaced by something softer, something real. Thanks to you, I said, squeezing her hand. Megan's bombshell didn't derail my life, but it served as a reminder, a final chapter in a story that was finally, truly over. For once, I was free.